Amanda Thompson stood alone at the graveside, a small hand clutched in hers, watching the polished mahogany casket being lowered into the unforgiving earth. The September breeze rustled through the oak trees that lined Lake Miller Cemetery, carrying with it the first hints of autumn. Amanda's eyes remained fixed on the casket, unable to process that her 16-year-old grandson Tyler, with his infectious laugh and brilliant mind, was inside. "Grandma, when are Mom and Dad coming?" Charlotte whispered, her 7-year-old voice trembling with confusion rather than grief. She was still too young to fully comprehend the permanence of death, but old enough to notice her parents' absence. "I'm not sure, sweetheart," Amanda lied, knowing exactly where they were. Daniel had texted earlier. "Can't handle this today. Taking Harper for drinks. She's a mess. We'll stop by tomorrow." A mess as if their suffering somehow outranked hers or Charlotte's or the 50 people who had actually shown up. Tyler's teachers, classmates, church youth group, and neighbors who had watched him grow up under Amanda's care for the past 6 years. 6 years since Daniel and Harper had appeared at her door with 2 shell-shocked children in suitcases, explaining they needed a short break from parenting to find themselves. That break had extended indefinitely, with them dropping by for the occasional holiday or birthday, playing at parenthood for a few hours before disappearing again. Gerald, her late husband, had seen it coming years before. Daniel was never going to be the father those kids deserve, he told her while setting up the trust funds. "We need to make sure they're taken care of properly." At the time, Amanda thought he was being harsh on their only son. Now, standing beside Tyler's grave, she recognized it as simple truth. The ceremony concluded, and people filed past with hugs and condolences. Tyler's best friend, Marcus, lingered, his eyes red-rimmed. "He saved my little brother," he said hoarsely. "I want you to know that. When Jason started struggling in the deep water." Tyler didn't hesitate. Not for a second. Amanda hugged him tightly. That sounds exactly like Tyler. As the last mourners departed, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She waited until Charlotte was distracted by the flower arrangements before checking it. A text from Harper. "Stop being dramatic. This is urgent. We need to discuss Tyler's trust fund." Amanda's fingers tightened around the phone as white-hot anger surged through her. Her grandson wasn't even in the ground, and they were already circling like vultures over the $950,000 that Gerald had left him. Before she could respond, another message appeared. "Also, we're coming for Charlotte tomorrow. It's time she came home. You're not in a state to care for her right now." Home, as if they had ever provided one. As if the house where Charlotte had her own carefully decorated bedroom, where she'd lived since she was barely a year old, where her brother had taught her to read and ride a bike, wasn't her real home. "Charlotte, honey," Amanda said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Let's go back to the house now. People will be bringing food." As they walked to her car, Amanda glanced back at Tyler's grave one last time. The cemetery was peaceful, oak trees casting dappled shadows across the manicured grass. Tyler had loved those trees, climbing them fearlessly as a child before his interest turned to science and computers. "Grandma," Charlotte said suddenly, her small face serious beneath her black hat. "Mom texted me that I'm going to live with them again, but I don't want to. Can I stay with you?" Amanda's heart clenched. She hadn't realized they'd already contacted Charlotte directly. "When did she text you, sweetheart?" "During the funeral." Charlotte pulled out the small phone they'd given her for emergencies. She read aloud, "They're my real parents, and it's time I remembered that." Amanda took a deep breath, calculating her next move carefully. Daniel and Harper had signed over temporary guardianship years ago, but they remained Charlotte's legal parents. And now, with Tyler gone and his trust fund hanging in the balance, they were suddenly interested in reclaiming their daughter. "We'll figure it all out," she promised, helping Charlotte into the car. "But for now, we're going home together." The house was filled with the murmur of sympathetic voices when Amanda and Charlotte returned from the cemetery. Neighbors and church members had arrived bearing casseroles and condolences, transforming their grief-stricken home into a muted celebration of Tyler's life. Photos of him adorned every surface: Tyler at his science fair, Tyler with his youth group, Tyler holding newborn Charlotte with awe on his young face. Amanda moved mechanically through the rituals of hospitality, accepting hugs and repeating the story of Tyler's heroism. While her mind worked furiously on a strategy for the battle ahead, Charlotte stayed close to her side, as if sensing the threat to their small family unit. "Where are Daniel and Harper?" Mrs. Patel from next door finally asked the question hanging in the air. "I haven't seen them all day." "They're processing their grief privately," Amanda replied. The diplomatic answer of a woman who'd spent decades managing difficult situations with grace as a high school principal. Mrs. Patel's eyebrows rose slightly. "I see," she said, in a tone that confirmed she saw exactly what kind of people Amanda's son and his wife truly were. After the last guest departed, leaving behind a refrigerator packed with enough food to last a week, Amanda tucked Charlotte into bed with extra stories and reassurances. When Charlotte's breathing finally deepened into sleep, Amanda retreated to Gerald's old office, a room she'd preserved almost exactly as he left it 3 years ago. The familiar space, with its leather chair and bookshelves lined with financial volumes, brought a measure of comfort. Gerald had been the planner in their relationship, always 3 steps ahead of any potential problem. She needed his foresight now more than ever. Amanda unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk where he kept important documents. The trust fund paperwork was organized in meticulous folders, each labeled in Gerald's precise handwriting, Tyler Wilson Trust and Charlotte Wilson Trust. A third folder caught her eye. Contingency measures. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside was a letter addressed to her in Gerald's handwriting, dated just 2 months before his heart attack. "My dear Amanda, if you're reading this, I suspect Daniel and Harper have made a move for the children's money. I've seen the calculation in their eyes whenever finances are mentioned, and I fear that my death might embolden them. I've structured both trusts with multiple safeguards. As primary trustee, you have considerable discretionary power. In the event of Tyler or Charlotte's death before age 25, the funds do not automatically revert to Daniel and Harper. Instead, they remain in trust with you, maintaining trustee authority to distribute according to what you believe the child would have wanted. I've also taken the liberty of documenting Daniel and Harper's parental negligence over the years with the help of our attorney, James Harrington. You'll find his contact information enclosed. He has all the necessary evidence should custody of either child be contested. Remember, my love, you are stronger than you know, and you were always the better judge of character between us. All my love." Gerald. Amanda pressed the letter to her chest, tears flowing freely for the first time since Tyler's accident. Even from beyond the grave, Gerald was protecting them. She reached for the phone and dialed James Harrington's number, glancing at the clock. 9:45 p.m. Too late for a professional call, but this couldn't wait. To her surprise, he answered on the 3rd ring. "James Harrington. Mr. Harrington, this is Amanda Thompson, Gerald's wife." A pause, then recognition. "Mrs. Thompson, I've been expecting your call, though not under these circumstances. I was deeply sorry to hear about Tyler." "You know about Tyler?" she asked, confused. "It was in the local paper. And to be frank, I've been monitoring the situation since Gerald asked me to, 2 years ago. I'm aware that Daniel and Harper have recently consulted with Patricia Simmons, a family law attorney with a reputation for aggressive tactics." Amanda's stomach tightened. "They've already found a lawyer. They want Tyler's trust fund, and they're coming for Charlotte." "Yes, I anticipated as much." Patricia filed preliminary paperwork this morning, a petition for Daniel and Harper to be named beneficiaries of Tyler's trust, and an emergency motion for the return of Charlotte to their custody. The room seemed to spin. "This morning before the funeral?" "I'm afraid so. They're claiming you've alienated Charlotte's affections and that Tyler's death has rendered you emotionally unstable. Standard tactics, but potentially effective if we're not prepared." Amanda fought to steady her breathing. "What do we do?" "First, we counter their emergency motion immediately. I've taken the liberty of preparing the necessary documents. I just need your signature. Second, we need to demonstrate their pattern of parental abandonment. Do you have records of their visits, financial support, or lack thereof over the past 6 years?" "I have everything," Amanda confirmed, thinking of the meticulous calendar she'd maintained, documenting every missed birthday, every canceled visit, every time Charlotte had cried herself to sleep asking for parents who never came. Gerald said you have evidence as well. Indeed, Gerald hired a private investigator to document their lifestyle. We have considerable photographic evidence of their priorities, none of which included their children. For the first time since reading Harper's text, Amanda felt a flicker of hope. When can we meet? I'll come to you first thing tomorrow morning. In the meantime, if Daniel and Harper attempt to remove Charlotte from your home, call the police immediately. The temporary guardianship agreement gives you legal standing until a court rules otherwise. After ending the call, Amanda sat in Gerald's chair, drawing strength from the familiar scent of his leather-bound books and the faint traces of his aftershave that somehow lingered years later. She opened her laptop and began compiling her own evidence photographs of school events where only she had attended, medical records showing her as the consistent caregiver, and screenshots of the sparse, infrequent text messages from Daniel and Harper over the years. A soft knock interrupted her work. Charlotte stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Bad dream?" Amanda asked, opening her arms. She nodded, climbing into Amanda's lap. "I dreamed Mom and Dad took me away, and I couldn't see Tyler anymore." Amanda stroked her dark hair, so similar to her brother's. "Tyler will always be with us in our hearts, sweetheart, and you and I are staying together. I promise." As Charlotte drifted back to sleep in her arms, Amanda made another promise. Silent, but no less binding, she would honor Tyler's memory and protect his sister, no matter what it took. Daniel and Harper had declared war at the worst possible moment, when they thought grief had weakened her. They were about to discover how very wrong they were. The doorbell rang at precisely 8 a.m. the next morning. James Harrington stood on her porch, silver-haired and carrying a leather briefcase that reminded Amanda of Gerald. His presence exuded the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to winning difficult battles. "They'll be here by 10 Nizard," he warned, setting out documents on her dining room table. "Daniel called my office, demanding to know why I'm representing you instead of them. He seems to believe family loyalty should override professional ethics." Amanda snorted, pouring them both coffee. Daniel has always had a selective understanding of loyalty. Charlotte was still asleep upstairs, exhausted from grief and worry. Amanda had called her school to arrange a week's absence, speaking with her counselor about providing support when she returned. "We need to discuss strategy," James said, spreading out papers in organized piles. "Patricia Simmons is building her case on 2 fronts, financial control and custody. For the trust, she's arguing that as Tyler's parents, Daniel and Harper are the natural inheritors of his assets. For Charlotte, she's claiming that your age and emotional state after Tyler's death make you unfit as a guardian." "I'm only 67, for heaven's sake. I was still running a high school 2 years ago." James nodded. "Your age isn't the issue, and they know it. It's a smokescreen. What they really want is control of both trusts, Tyler's $950,000 and access to Charlotte's $750,000 through regaining custody." Amanda sipped her coffee, the bitterness matching her mood. "What's our counter for the trust fund?" "We have Gerald's explicit instructions. He anticipated this scenario and included specific language giving you discretionary control in the event of Tyler's death before age 25. James tapped a document with his index finger. "You have the authority to determine how those funds are used in accordance with what you believe Tyler would have wanted." A weight lifted slightly from Amanda's shoulders. "And for Charlotte, that's where we need to be especially strategic. We have substantial evidence of abandonment, 6 years of minimal contact, no financial support, missed visitations, but family courts are notoriously inclined to favor biological parents, even those with spotty records." Amanda glanced at the ceiling, thinking of Charlotte sleeping above them. She doesn't want to go with them. She barely knows them. Her preference will be considered given her age, but it won't be determinative. James removed his glasses, polishing them thoughtfully. "Our strongest argument is stability and continuity of care. Charlotte has lived with you during her formative years, attends school here, has friends and support systems in place. Removing her now, especially after her brother's death, would cause additional trauma." The doorbell rang again, jolting them both. "They're early," Amanda murmured, checking her watch. Not even 9. When she opened the door, she was momentarily speechless. Daniel and Harper stood on her porch, looking uncharacteristically polished Daniel in a button-down shirt instead of his usual band t-shirts. Harper with her normally wild hair neatly styled, wearing a conservative dress Amanda had never seen before. "Mom," Daniel said, stepping forward as if to embrace her. Amanda stepped back. "You missed your son's funeral yesterday." His manufactured smile faltered. "We were grieving in our own way. It was too painful to attend." "Too painful for you, but not for your 7-year-old daughter." She kept her voice low, conscious of Charlotte upstairs. "Or for me, burying my grandson alone." "We're here now," Harper interjected, her voice sugary sweet. "For Charlotte, she needs her parents at a time like this." "She needed her parents for the past 6 years," Amanda replied evenly. "Funny how you've suddenly remembered that now." Daniel's expression hardened. "Are you going to let us in?" "We have a right to see our daughter." "You have scheduled visitation rights as outlined in the temporary guardianship agreement you both signed. Today is not one of those days." "That agreement is being terminated," Harper snapped, her cultivated facade cracking. "We're taking Charlotte home with us today. We've already enrolled her in a school near our apartment." Amanda almost laughed at the absurdity. "The apartment you've been evicted from twice in the past year." A flicker of surprise crossed Daniel's face. "Please, come in," James called from behind her, his tone professionally cordial. "I believe we have matters to discuss before anyone makes decisions about Charlotte's living arrangements." Daniel's eyes narrowed at the sight of Gerald's lawyer. "What's he doing here?" "Representing my interests," Amanda replied, stepping aside to let them enter. They moved cautiously into the living room, taking in the photos of Tyler and Charlotte that covered the walls and shelves, visual documentation of a childhood they'd largely missed. "Where's Charlotte?" Harper demanded, glancing around as if expecting to find her hidden somewhere. "Still sleeping. She had nightmares about her brother's death." "The brother whose funeral you skipped to go drinking." Daniel flushed. "You have no right to judge how we process grief." "Actually," James interjected, "Mrs. Thompson has every right to be concerned about your priorities, given the motion you filed for custody." "Our lawyer advised us to act quickly," Harper said defensively, "before you could hide assets or influence Charlotte against us." The accusation was so ludicrous Amanda couldn't formulate an immediate response. Hide assets. She'd spent 6 years meticulously accounting for every penny of the children's trusts with annual reports to the bank's trust department. "I think," James said calmly, "we should discuss realistic expectations here. Daniel, Harper, Mrs. Thompson has been the children's primary caregiver for 6 years with minimal intervention or support from either of you. The court will take that into consideration." "We're her parents," Daniel insisted. "Blood matters." "So does showing up," Amanda countered, unable to contain herself. "So does being there for birthdays and school performances and nightmares and flu seasons. So does actually parenting, not just contributing DNA." Harper's face contorted with anger. "You've always thought you were better than us." "The perfect mother, the respected principal. You turned Tyler against us, and now you're doing the same with Charlotte." "Tyler formed his own opinions based on your actions, or lack thereof," Amanda said, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. "And Charlotte barely knows you because that's what you chose." "Enough," James intervened. "This isn't productive. Daniel, Harper, I understand you've retained Patricia Simmons. I suggest we schedule a formal meeting with all parties present to discuss potential resolutions that prioritize Charlotte's well-being." Daniel crossed his arms. "We're not leaving without our daughter." "I'm afraid you are," James replied, his pleasant tone unchanged. "The current guardianship agreement remains in effect until a court orders otherwise. Attempting to remove Charlotte from Mrs. Thompson's home without proper authority would constitute parental kidnapping, a felony in this state." The silence that followed was electric. Amanda could almost see Daniel calculating his options, the same expression he'd worn as a teenager, trying to talk his way out of trouble. Before he could respond, small footsteps sounded on the stairs. Charlotte appeared in the doorway, her hair tousled from sleep, eyes widening at the sight of her parents. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" Harper immediately transformed, her voice honey-sweet. "Charlotte, sweetheart, we came to take you home with us. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" Charlotte took a step backward. But I am home. In that moment, seeing her granddaughter's confusion and fear, Amanda knew this battle was just beginning and that she would fight with every ounce of strength she possessed to protect her from the storm ahead. Don't be silly, sweetheart. Harper recovered quickly, approaching Charlotte with outstretched arms. Your real home is with your mom and dad. We've got your room already pink walls, just like you wanted when you were little. Charlotte remained in the doorway, not moving into Harper's embrace. I don't like pink anymore. My room here is blue and silver. Tyler helped me paint the stars on the ceiling. Amanda saw the flash of irritation in Harper's eyes at this reminder of how little she knew her own daughter. Charlotte had outgrown her pink phase 3 years ago, moving on to a fascination with space and astronomy, encouraged by her science-loving brother. Well, we can repaint it any color you want, Daniel interjected, trying a different approach. The important thing is we'll be together, a real family again. Charlotte looked at Amanda, uncertainty in her eyes. Amanda wanted desperately to intervene, to shield her from this confrontation, but James had advised letting Charlotte express her own feelings. At 7, the courts would at least consider her preferences, even if they weren't determinative. What about Grandma? Charlotte asked. And school and Maisie next door, and Tyler's fish tank that I promised I'd take care of. Grandma can visit, Daniel said dismissively. And you'll make new friends at your new school. As for the fish, he shrugged. We can get new ones. Amanda watched her granddaughter's face harden with a determination that reminded her powerfully of Tyler. No, she said firmly. I don't want to go. Tyler wouldn't want me to go either. Harper's facade cracked completely. Tyler is gone, Charlotte, and it's time you stopped letting your grandmother turn you against us. We're your real family. I think, James interrupted smoothly, that this conversation is causing Charlotte unnecessary distress. Daniel, Harper, perhaps we should continue our discussion without her present. She's our daughter, Harper snapped. We don't need your permission to talk to her. Amanda crossed to Charlotte, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Sweetheart, why don't you go upstairs and get dressed? Maybe check on Tyler's fish. I'll bring you some breakfast in a little while. Charlotte hesitated, looking between her parents and her grandmother. Are they going to make me leave? No decisions are being made today. James answered before Amanda could. Right now, you continue living with your grandmother just like always. After Charlotte retreated upstairs, Daniel rounded on Amanda. You've poisoned her against us, turned our own daughter into a stranger. Charlotte is not a stranger, Amanda replied evenly. She's the child you left with me 6 years ago and visited maybe 10 times since. She's the little girl who stopped asking when you were coming for her birthday after you missed 3 in a row. She's a second grader who excels at math, has 2 best friends named Maisie and Zoe, and sleeps with the nightlight on because she's afraid of the dark. If she seems like a stranger to you, Daniel, that's entirely your doing, not mine. Daniel's face flushed dark with anger. You self-righteous. That's enough. James cut in, his voice suddenly steely. This meeting is clearly unproductive. I suggest we continue communication through proper legal channels. Mrs. Thompson has offered reasonable visitation with Charlotte while the court considers your petition. I advise you to accept that offer as evidence of your genuine interest in Charlotte's well-being. We're not settling for visitation, Harper retorted. We want our daughter, and we want Tyler's trust fund released immediately. Tyler would have wanted us to have it. The naked greed in her statement stunned Amanda into momentary silence. James, however, didn't miss a beat. That's an interesting perspective, considering Tyler's journal entries specifically discussing his concerns about your financial motives. James removed a bound notebook from his briefcase, Tyler's journal, which Amanda had provided him earlier that morning. Would you like me to read some relevant passages for the record? Daniel paled visibly. You can't use a dead kid's diary against his parents. That's sick. On the contrary, James replied calmly. Tyler's expressed wishes regarding his trust fund are highly relevant to how it should be managed now. For instance, his entries from just 3 months ago where he discusses his plans to use the money for college and to establish a scholarship for underprivileged students interested in environmental science. Amanda hadn't known about that plan. The revelation brought fresh tears to her eyes. thinking of her grandson's generous spirit, his desire to help others even while planning his own future. "This is ridiculous," Harper snapped, gathering her purse. "Our lawyer will be in touch. Don't think for a minute this is over." "One moment," James said, removing another document from his briefcase. "Before you go, you should be aware that Mrs. Thompson has filed a counter-petition requesting formal adoption of Charlotte, given the documented abandonment over the past 6 years. Abandonment, Daniel exploded. "We left her in the care of a family member. That's not abandonment." "The law disagrees," James replied unperturbed. "Specifically, the failure to maintain consistent contact, provide financial support, or demonstrate meaningful parental involvement for a period exceeding teen months constitutes constructive abandonment in this state. You've done all 3 for over 6 years. Harper grabbed Daniel's arm. "Let's go. Patricia will handle this. She promised we had an airtight case." As they stormed toward the door, Harper paused, turning back with venom in her eyes. "By the way, Amanda, you should know we've already spoken to the bank. Patricia says as Tyler's legal heirs. That money is as good as ours. You're just postponing the inevitable." After they left, Amanda collapsed into a chair, the adrenaline of confrontation draining away and leaving exhaustion in its wake. Will they really get Tyler's money? James sat beside her, his expression somber. "Not if I can help it. Gerald was very explicit in the trust documentation, but we need to prepare for an aggressive legal battle. Patricia Simmons has a reputation for scorched earth tactics in family court. What about Charlotte? That's more complicated. Despite their negligence, there's a strong presumption in favor of biological parents. Our best strategy is to demonstrate that uprooting Charlotte now would cause significant psychological harm, especially following her brother's death." Amanda nodded, thinking of the little girl upstairs who had already lost so much. "What's our next move? We document everything. Every interaction, every statement about their intentions for the money. We gather character witnesses, Charlotte's teachers, your neighbors, anyone who can testify to the stability of her life with you versus the chaos with them." James packed his documents methodically. "Most importantly, we prepare Charlotte for the possibility of court-ordered evaluations. She'll need to speak with psychologists, possibly a guardian ad litem appointed to represent her interests." After James left, Amanda carried breakfast upstairs to find Charlotte sitting on her bed, clutching the stuffed otter Tyler had given her for her 5th birthday. "Are they gone?" she asked in a small voice. "Yes, sweetheart, they're gone for now." "They want Tyler's money," she said with the devastating directness of childhood. "That's why they suddenly want me too, isn't it?" Amanda sat beside her, choosing her words carefully. "Your parents are going through a difficult time right now, making choices I don't agree with. But I promise you this, I will do everything in my power to keep you safe and honor Tyler's memory properly." Charlotte leaned against her, her small body somehow containing both fragility and remarkable strength. "Tyler always said money makes people crazy. I guess he was right." "Tyler was right about a lot of things," Amanda agreed, holding her close and silently renewing her vow to protect her, no matter what storms lay ahead. The doorbell rang unexpectedly that afternoon. When Amanda opened it, she found a man she hadn't seen in a decade standing on her porch, Michael Wilson, Daniel's younger brother, who had moved to California after a falling out with the family years ago. "Michael," Amanda breathed, stunned by the sight of him. At 39, he'd grown more handsome, with streaks of gray at his temples and the same blue eyes as Gerald and Tyler. "Amanda," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I just saw the news about Tyler online. Is it true?" Amanda nodded, tears welling up again. "A drowning accident at Lake Miller. He was trying to save another boy." "That sounds like Tyler," Michael said softly. "Always the hero." Amanda stepped aside to let him in. "How did you know? I've been keeping tabs on the family through Mrs. Patel next door. She emails me occasionally." He hesitated in the foyer, taking in the photos of Tyler and Charlotte. "And now I hear Daniel and Harper are suing you for Tyler's trust fund and custody of Charlotte, after abandoning both kids for years." "You know about that too?" Michael's expression darkened. "Mrs. Patel's latest email was quite detailed. I caught the first flight I could. This is beyond the pale, even for Daniel." Amanda led him into the living room, a strange relief washing over her. Michael had left Pennsylvania after a bitter argument with Gerald and Daniel over the family construction business. Gerald had chosen Daniel to take over despite Michael's superior work ethic and business acumen, simply because Daniel was the oldest son. The business had failed within 3 years under Daniel's mismanagement, a vindication Michael never got to witness since he'd already severed contact by then. "I'm not sure what you can do," Amanda said hesitantly, "but I'm grateful you're here." Michael's jaw set in determination. "I'm here to help fight them. Tyler and Charlotte are my niece and nephew, even if I've been a lousy long-distance uncle." He paused, his eyes softening. "And you were more of a mother to me than my biological mother ever was. Amanda, I'm not going to sit back while Daniel and Harper try to cash in on Tyler's death." For the first time since Tyler's death, Amanda felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps she wouldn't have to face this battle completely alone. The media caught wind of the story 3 days later. Amanda opened her front door to find the local newspaper's weekend edition featuring a side column headline, "Family Battles Over Drowned Teen's $1 Million Trust Fund." The reporter had somehow obtained details about the legal filings, presenting the case as a sensationalized family drama rather than the heartbreaking reality they were living. Charlotte, thankfully, was at a play date with Maisie next door, a brief reprieve from the grief and tension permeating their home. Amanda scanned the article with mounting horror, noting quotes from sources close to the family who claimed she was emotionally manipulating her granddaughter while hoarding assets rightfully belonging to the parents. "Vultures," Michael muttered, reading over her shoulder. "Patricia Simmons must have leaked this. It's a classic tactic trial by public opinion." Amanda sank into a kitchen chair. The newspaper spread before her. "I never wanted this to become a public spectacle. Tyler deserves better." Michael squeezed her shoulder. "We'll fight them on every front, Amanda, including this one." Over the next hours, they worked on assembling what James had called their arsenal. Michael's background in corporate law proved unexpectedly valuable as they organized financial records, visitation logs, and school documents into clear, compelling evidence of Daniel and Harper's absence from the children's lives. "I've been thinking about Daniel's behavior," Amanda said softly as they worked. "Where did I go wrong with him? Michael, was it because I worked such long hours when he was a teenager? Did I not give him enough attention?" Michael looked up from the documents, surprised. "Is that what you think, that this is somehow your fault?" "He's my son. His choices must reflect something about his upbringing." Michael set down the papers and faced her directly. "Amanda, listen to me. Daniel had every advantage growing up. Yes, you worked hard as a principal, but you never missed his games or his parent-teacher conferences. You helped with homework, made family dinners, enforced reasonable boundaries. Daniel's issues aren't because you failed as a mother." "Then why I just don't understand how he could abandon his own children the way he has." Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so like Gerald's it made Amanda's heart ache. "Daniel has always taken the path of least resistance. When Dad pushed him to take over the construction company, he did it not because he wanted to, but because fighting would have been harder. When the business started struggling, instead of buckling down, he cashed out what he could and walked away. And his children. Parenting is hard. Harper got pregnant with Tyler when they'd been dating only a few months. I think Daniel saw marriage and fatherhood as obligations he had to fulfill, not choices he embraced. Then, when Harper had postpartum depression after Charlotte was born, she did. This was news to Amanda. "They never told me," Michael nodded. "Mrs. Patel mentioned it in one of her emails. Apparently, Harper struggled severely after Charlotte's birth, but instead of getting her proper help, Daniel encouraged her to self-medicate. That's when the gambling started a distraction, an escape." Amanda absorbed this new information, seeing her son's choices in a more complex, though still troubling, light. That explains some things, but it doesn't excuse abandoning their children for 6 years. "No, it doesn't," Michael agreed. "But understanding the pattern might help us predict their next moves. Daniel and Harper aren't just after money, though. That's a big part of it. They're also after the appearance of being good parents without doing the actual work." The doorbell interrupted their conversation. Amanda opened it to find Marcus, Tyler's best friend, standing awkwardly on the porch with his parents. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you," he began, "but I saw the newspaper article. The stuff they're saying about you, it's all lies." His mother, Elena Rodriguez, stepped forward. "We want to help. Amanda, Tyler was like a second son in our home. Marcus has 4 years of text messages from Tyler discussing his parents' absence and how grateful he was for your care. And videos," Marcus added. "From when he was helping my brother after the accident. He recorded himself and Jason on his phone right before—" His voice cracked. "Before he went back in to try again." Amanda stared at them, uncomprehending. "There's video of the accident," Marcus nodded solemnly. "The police have the original, but I have the backup from his cloud account. He was always paranoid about losing data, so he gave me his password." He pulled out his phone. "You should see it, especially what he says about you." With trembling hands, Amanda accepted the phone. The video showed Tyler and a younger boy, both soaking wet, sitting on the shore of Lake Miller. Tyler's normally neat hair was plastered to his forehead, his expression simultaneously relieved and concerned. "So, Jason Rodriguez, survivor extraordinaire." Tyler's voice came through the speaker, breathless but playful. "Tell the camera how awesome I am for pulling you out." The younger boy, perhaps 12, rolled his eyes despite his obvious exhaustion. "You're the best. Tyler, a regular superhero. Happy now. Ecstatic." Tyler laughed. Then his expression grew more serious. "Seriously, though, you good? We should probably get you checked out. Grandma Amanda always says near drowning can have delayed effects." "I'm fine," Jason insisted. "Just don't tell my mom how far out I was. She'll never let me swim again. Your secret's safe with me." Tyler turned the camera to face himself directly. "And speaking of Grandma Amanda, if she ever sees this, I want the record to show that I did not go past the safety buoys. I was being a responsible adult, saving lives within the designated swimming area." His smile softened. "Love you, Grandma. Don't worry. We're heading back now. Just needed a minute to catch our breath." The video ended there. According to the police report, moments later, another child had started struggling in deeper water. Tyler had handed his phone to Jason, told him to wait on shore, and gone back in this time swimming beyond his capabilities in rougher water. Tears streamed down Amanda's face as she handed the phone back to Marcus. "I didn't know this existed." "There's more," Elena said gently. Tyler talked to Marcus extensively about his plans for his trust fund. He was researching scholarships and environmental conservation projects, all documented in their messages. Michael, who had joined them at the door, placed a supportive hand on Amanda's shoulder. This directly contradicts Daniel and Harper's claim that Tyler would have wanted them to have his money. A new sense of purpose straightened Amanda's spine. "Would you be willing to share these messages with our lawyer and possibly testify if this goes to court?" Marcus nodded without hesitation. "Tyler was my best friend. No way I'm letting his parents cash in on his death when they couldn't be bothered with him while he was alive." As Amanda invited the Rodriguez family inside, she felt the first genuine hope since this battle began. Daniel and Harper had the advantage of being Charlotte's biological parents, but she had something potentially more powerful: the truth about who had truly loved and parented these children, documented in Tyler's own words. The preliminary hearing took place 2 weeks after Tyler's funeral. Amanda sat at the defendant's table beside James, with Michael directly behind them in the first row of the gallery. Across the aisle, Daniel and Harper presented the picture of grieving parents in subdued business attire, a striking contrast to their typical casual appearance. Their attorney, Patricia Simmons, was everything James had warned Amanda about: sharp-featured and sharper-tongued, with a predatory confidence as she arranged her documents. She had already filed multiple motions attempting to exclude Tyler's text messages and journal entries, arguing they represented hearsay from a minor and were potentially manipulated after his death. Thankfully, the judge had denied these motions. Recognizing their relevance to Tyler's wishes regarding his trust fund, Charlotte was not present, spared this proceeding by the judge's decision to interview her privately in chambers later. She'd spent the morning with the Rodriguez family, who had become unexpected pillars of support during this ordeal. "All rise," the bailiff announced as Judge Harriet Watkins entered, a veteran family court judge known for her no-nonsense approach. After the preliminaries, Patricia Simmons launched immediately into her narrative. Your Honor, this case is fundamentally about parents seeking to reclaim their parental rights and secure the inheritance legally intended for them following the tragic death of their son. Mrs. Thompson has used her position as temporary guardian to alienate these children from their biological parents, and now seeks to deny them both custody of their daughter and access to funds rightfully theirs as Tyler Wilson's legal heirs. Judge Watkins' expression remained neutral, but Amanda noticed her eyes sharpen at Simmons' characterization. Mr. Harrington, your response? James rose calmly. Your Honor, this case is about honoring the explicit legal arrangements made by Gerald Thompson before his death, which granted Amanda Thompson trustee authority over both children's trust funds with specific provisions regarding distribution in the event of either child's death before age 25. It is also about maintaining stability for Charlotte Wilson, who has resided with her grandmother for 6 years with only minimal contact from her parents. Finally, it is about respecting Tyler Wilson's clearly documented wishes regarding his trust fund, which demonstrably did not include transferring it to parents who were largely absent from his life. Judge Watkins nodded. Let's address the trust fund issue first, as it appears to be driving much of this dispute. Ms. Simmons, on what grounds do your clients claim entitlement to Tyler Wilson's trust fund despite the explicit language giving Mrs. Thompson discretionary authority? Simmons stepped forward. Your Honor, as Tyler's legal parents, Daniel and Harper Wilson are his natural heirs under state law. The discretionary authority granted to Mrs. Thompson was intended for managing the fund until Tyler reached maturity, not for circumventing inheritance laws after his death. That's a creative interpretation, Judge Watkins remarked dryly. Mr. Harrington, the trust document language. James presented the relevant papers. Section 14, paragraph C explicitly states, in the event of the beneficiary's death prior to age 25, the trustee shall retain discretionary authority to distribute remaining funds in a manner consistent with the beneficiary's expressed wishes or best interests. Gerald Thompson specifically included this language to prevent exactly this scenario. The judge reviewed the document carefully. Miss Simmons, this language seems clear. What evidence do you have that Tyler Wilson wished his trust fund to go to his parents rather than be used according to Mrs. Thompson's discretion? Tyler was a minor, Your Honor. His legal interests were naturally aligned with his parents. That's not evidence, Judge Watkins pointed out. That's supposition. Simmons shifted tactics. Your Honor, Tyler's relationship with his parents was complicated by Mrs. Thompson's interference. Any expressions contrary to his natural filial loyalty were likely influenced by her systematic alienation efforts. Amanda felt her blood pressure rising at this blatant mischaracterization, but James placed a calming hand on her arm. Your Honor, he interjected, we have substantial evidence of Tyler's actual wishes expressed consistently over several years without any prompting from Mrs. Thompson. The judge gestured for him to proceed. James introduced Marcus Rodriguez, who testified about the text messages and conversations documenting Tyler's plans for his trust fund college, environmental scholarships, and supporting his sister's future education. Next came Tyler's academic advisor, Dr. Lillian Chen, who confirmed Tyler had consulted her about university programs in environmental science, discussing how his trust fund would cover his education while allowing him to establish a scholarship program. Throughout these testimonies, Amanda watched Daniel and Harper's expressions shift from confidence to discomfort as Tyler's independent voice emerged through the witnesses, a voice clearly articulating plans that never included financially supporting the parents who had effectively abandoned him. When Patricia Simmons cross-examined Marcus, attempting to suggest that Amanda had coached him on his testimony, he responded with teenage bluntness. Mrs. Thompson didn't need to tell me anything. I have 4 years of texts from Tyler talking about how his parents ditched him and Charlotte. Want me to read some highlights? After the morning's witnesses, Judge Watkins called a lunch recess. In the hallway, Amanda found herself face-to-face with Daniel, who had separated from Harper and their attorney. Mom, he began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. This is getting out of hand. Can't we talk about this privately? Come to some arrangement? What kind of arrangement? Amanda asked cautiously. Split the money. You keep Charlotte for now. We'll take visitation and half of Tyler's trust. Everyone wins. The casual way he suggested dividing his dead son's legacy like spoils of war made Amanda's stomach turn. Tyler's trust isn't a bargaining chip, Daniel. It represents his future, the one you and Jesse were never interested in supporting while he was alive. His expression hardened. He was our son. That money belongs to us now. No, Amanda corrected quietly. That money belonged to Tyler, and now it belongs to his legacy, whatever that should be. Which is exactly what your father intended when he structured the trust this way, knowing you couldn't be trusted with it. Daniel's face flushed with anger. Dad always thought the worst of me. Looks like you're carrying on that tradition. Your father, Amanda replied evenly, gave you multiple chances to prove him wrong. The family business, the trust funds, your own children. You squandered every opportunity. Daniel, and now you want to cash in on the tragedy of losing the son you never bothered to parent. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You think you've got this all sewn up with your videos and text messages. Harper and I are still Charlotte's legal parents. The courts favor biological parents, everyone knows that. So maybe you'll keep Tyler's money, but we'll get Charlotte. How does that sound? Still feel like fighting us on every front? Amanda stared at her son, barely recognizing the person he had become. Are you threatening to take Charlotte just to punish me for protecting Tyler's trust fund? I'm being practical, he replied coldly. You can't win everything. Mom, time to decide what matters more to you, the money or the kid. As he walked away to rejoin Harper and Patricia, Amanda leaned against the wall, momentarily overwhelmed by the callousness of his proposition. He was right about one thing: family courts did typically favor biological parents, even deeply flawed ones. Was she risking Charlotte's stability by fighting so hard for control of Tyler's trust? Amanda Michael appeared beside her, concern etched on his face. What did he say to you? She repeated Daniel's ultimatum, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael's expression darkened. That manipulative bastard, he's bluffing, trying to get you to cave on the money because he knows his custody case is weaker than he's pretending. But what if he's not bluffing? What if fighting for Tyler's trust means losing Charlotte? Michael placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. That's not a choice you have to make. Daniel showing his true colors, making it clear this is about money, not Charlotte's well-being, trust me. The judge will see that too. As they returned to the courtroom for the afternoon session, Amanda prayed Michael was right, because the thought of Charlotte being used as leverage in this sordid battle for Tyler's money was perhaps the most heartbreaking development yet in a month already overflowing with grief. That night, Amanda sat in Gerald's office, surrounded by legal documents but unable to focus on any of them. Daniel's ultimatum echoed in her mind, along with his poisonous suggestion that she couldn't protect both Tyler's legacy and Charlotte's future. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Charlotte stood there in her space-themed pajamas, clutching her stuffed otter. Can't sleep, sweetheart? Amanda asked, opening her arms. Charlotte crawled into her lap, her small body warm against Amanda's chest. I had a bad dream about Tyler. Do you want to talk about it? Charlotte nodded against her shoulder. Tyler was trying to tell me something important, but I couldn't hear him. He kept pointing at a letter. Amanda stroked her hair soothingly. A letter, like the one he gave me before he went to the lake. Charlotte pulled back slightly, looking up at Amanda with solemn eyes. I didn't tell you about it because he said it was our secret, just in case something happened to him. Amanda's hand paused mid-stroke. Tyler gave you a letter before he went swimming that day. Charlotte nodded, slipping off Amanda's lap. I'll get it. She returned moments later with a folded piece of paper extracted from between the pages of a well-worn astronomy book. He said I should only read it if something bad happened, and not to show anyone unless it was really important. With trembling fingers, Amanda unfolded the letter. Tyler's neat handwriting covered the page. Charlotte, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I hope you never need to read this. But I've been having weird dreams lately about the lake, and it's better to be prepared. First, I want you to know how much I love you. Little star, being your big brother has been the best job I've ever had. Remember all our secret codes and adventures? Those are yours to keep forever, even if I'm not there. Second, I need you to be brave. Not the fake kind of brave where you pretend not to be scared, but the real kind where you do the right thing even when you are scared. That's what matters most. Grandma Amanda is the best mom we could have asked for. Always listen to her, because she only wants what's good for us. If Mom and Dad ever try to take you away from Grandma, show her this letter. Tell her I said you belong with her, where you're safe and loved. I've been saving my allowance to buy you something special for your birthday, a telescope of your very own. Since I can't give it to you now, ask Grandma to use some of my trust fund money. The rest should go to my college fund, even though I won't use it now, and to help other kids learn about protecting our lakes and rivers. That's what I want. Remember to feed my fish. The blue one is extra greedy, so watch him. I love you to the stars and back. Tyler P.S. When you look at the night sky, find the brightest star. That's me watching over you. Tears streamed down Amanda's face as she carefully refolded the letter. Tyler knew something might happen to him. Charlotte shrugged, a gesture too old for her 7 years. He said he had dreams about the lake. Bad ones. But he still went because Jason and the other kids wanted him to come. Amanda pulled Charlotte close, overwhelmed by her grandson's foresight and his final gift, irrefutable evidence of his wishes for both his sister and his trust fund. Thank you for showing me this, sweetheart. It's very important. Should I show it to the judge too? Tyler would want me to be brave. Amanda hesitated, torn between protecting Charlotte from the legal battle and respecting her agency in a decision that would profoundly affect her future. Would you feel comfortable doing that? Charlotte nodded solemnly. Tyler said to show it if Mom and Dad tried to take me away. They're trying now. Aren't they? Yes, they are. Amanda stroked her granddaughter's hair. But I promise you, I'm fighting to keep us together, just like Tyler wanted. I know. Charlotte's trust was absolute, humbling in its completeness. Tyler said you'd always protect me. That's why he wasn't scared to go help that other kid, because he knew you'd take care of me if something happened to him. As Charlotte finally drifted to sleep beside her, Amanda carefully placed Tyler's letter in Gerald's desk drawer, next to his own letter of contingency plans. Father and grandson, both trying to protect the family they loved even after they were gone. The symmetry wasn't lost on her. For the first time since Tyler's death, Amanda felt a sense of clarity cutting through her grief. Daniel's ultimatum no longer seemed like an impossible choice. Tyler had known what might happen and had left clear instructions for both his trust fund and his sister's care. Amanda would honor those wishes, whatever the cost. The next morning, she called James Harrington. Tyler left a letter for Charlotte, she explained, recounting its contents. She wants to show it to Judge Watkins. This changes everything, James said, his normally measured tone giving way to excitement. A contemporaneous document in Tyler's handwriting, explicitly stating his wishes for both the trust fund and Charlotte's guardianship. It's exactly what we need. But is it right to involve Charlotte directly in this fight? She's only 7. She's already involved, Amanda, James replied gently. Daniel and Harper have seen to that. The question now is whether her voice and Tyler's will be heard. Judge Watkins is scheduled to interview Charlotte privately tomorrow. With your permission, I'll contact the court to ensure they're aware of the letter's existence. After ending the call, Amanda found Michael in the kitchen, making pancakes with Charlotte, a domestic scene that highlighted everything Daniel and Harper had willingly sacrificed. Tyler's letter might be the turning point, she told him quietly while Charlotte arranged blueberries on her pancakes to form constellations. But Daniel won't give up easily, especially if he sees he's losing. Michael flipped another pancake with practiced ease. I've been thinking about that. There's something off about their sudden push for custody and cash. Even with Harper's gambling, it feels like there's more to the story. What do you mean? The urgency, the desperation, the newspaper leaks. Michael lowered his voice further. Daniel mentioned to me once, years ago, that Harper had gotten mixed up with some questionable people through her gambling. I wonder if they're under external pressure. Amanda considered this. You think they owe money to someone dangerous? It would explain their frantic timeline and willingness to use such underhanded tactics. Just a theory, but worth investigating. Michael served Charlotte her star-patterned pancakes with a flourish. Breakfast is served. Astronaut Charlotte, Charlotte giggled, momentarily just a 7-year-old girl enjoying breakfast with her uncle. The legal battle temporarily forgotten. Amanda watched them, a decision crystallizing in her mind. If Daniel and Harper were truly motivated by dangerous debts rather than sudden parental concern, they needed to know exactly who they were dealing with. She had spent decades as a high school principal, managing crises, difficult parents, and bureaucratic challenges. She hadn't reached retirement by backing down from bullies, no matter how powerful they seemed. The media might have Daniel and Harper's version of events, but Amanda had something more powerful, the truth, documented in Tyler's own words. That evening, as Charlotte helped her feed Tyler's fish, Amanda's phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but she answered anyway. "Mrs. Thompson," a woman's voice asked tentatively. "Yes, this is Amanda Thompson. This is Evelyn Lewis Harper's mother. We've met a few times years ago." Amanda stiffened. "Yes, I remember. How can I help you, Mrs. Lewis? Please, call me Evelyn." There was a pause, then a deep breath. "I've seen the newspaper articles about the custody battle. I need to talk to you about Harper and Daniel." "Are you calling on their behalf?" Amanda asked cautiously. "No." Evelyn's voice hardened. "I'm calling because I can't stay silent anymore. Harper has been lying to me for years about the children. She told me you refused to let them visit, that you turned the kids against them." "That's categorically false," Amanda replied, struggling to keep her voice even. "I know that now. I found Tyler's Christmas cards in Harper's desk drawer, years of them, unopened, and birthday cards for Charlotte that she never sent." Evelyn's voice broke. "My own grandchildren, and I barely know them because of my daughter's lies." Amanda sank into a chair, processing this revelation. "Why are you telling me this now, Evelyn?" "Because Patricia Simmons called me today. They want me to testify that Harper was a devoted mother, separated from her children by circumstance and your interference." Bitterness crept into her voice. "They expect me to perjure myself to help them get their hands on Tyler's money. And will you?" "No." Evelyn's response was immediate. "I've enabled Harper's behavior for too long, her gambling, her lying, her abandonment of those children. Not anymore." "They won't be happy about that," Amanda warned. "I know, but I have to do what's right." Finally, Evelyn paused again. "There's something else you should know. Harper owes money to some dangerous people, loan sharks who finance high-stakes poker games. A lot of money," Michael's suspicion confirmed. Amanda closed her eyes briefly. "How much?" "Over $200,000. They've been threatening her, and by extension, Daniel. That's the real reason for this sudden interest in Tyler's trust fund." The pieces clicked into place, the urgency, the desperation, the willingness to use Charlotte as leverage. "Thank you for telling me this, Evelyn." "Will you let me see Charlotte sometime?" Evelyn asked hesitantly. "I know I have no right to ask, but—" "Of course," Amanda interrupted, surprising herself with the immediacy of her response. "Charlotte should know her grandmother, all of her family who truly care about her welfare." After ending the call, Amanda sat quietly, absorbing this new information. Daniel and Harper weren't just motivated by opportunistic greed. They were desperate, dangerous, and backed into a corner. This made them both more vulnerable and more unpredictable. Tomorrow, Charlotte would speak with Judge Watkins. Tomorrow, Tyler's final letter would become part of the official record. And tomorrow, Amanda would discover whether justice could prevail against the primal legal bias toward biological parents, no matter how undeserving. As she tucked Charlotte into bed that night, the little girl asked sleepily, "Grandma, what if the judge makes me go with Mom and Dad?" Amanda smoothed back Charlotte's dark hair, so like Tyler's. "Remember what Tyler wrote in his letter about being brave even when you're scared?" Charlotte nodded. "That's what we're both going to do tomorrow. Be brave together. Like Tyler was brave at the lake." "Exactly like that," Amanda whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Now sleep, little star. Tomorrow is an important day." Long after Charlotte had fallen asleep, Amanda stood at the window, gazing up at the night sky. The stars burned cold and distant, but she felt Tyler's presence as clearly as if he stood beside her, his intelligence, his compassion, his unfailing moral compass. "I won't let you down," she promised softly to the brightest star. Either of you. The county courthouse stood imposing in the morning light as Amanda and Charlotte climbed the wide stone steps. Charlotte wore a simple navy dress with a silver star pin that had belonged to Tyler, her own small tribute to her brother. Her face was solemn beyond her years. Tyler's letter carefully folded in her pocket. "Remember," Amanda said gently, kneeling to Charlotte's level outside the courthouse doors. "You just need to be honest with Judge Watkins. There are no wrong answers." Charlotte nodded, her dark eyes serious. "Tyler said the truth is always brave, even when it's hard." James Harrington met them in the lobby, his familiar calm presence a steadying force. "Charlotte will meet with Judge Watkins privately in her chambers. You'll wait outside. Amanda, the judge prefers to speak with children without any family members present to ensure they feel free to express themselves." "Will Mom and Dad be there?" Charlotte asked, a flicker of anxiety crossing her face. "No, sweetheart," James assured her. "Just you and the judge, having a conversation." As they approached the judge's chambers, Amanda squeezed Charlotte's hand one last time. "I'm proud of you, no matter what happens." Charlotte squared her small shoulders. "I'm ready." A court officer led Charlotte into the judge's chambers, leaving Amanda to wait outside with James. The hallway was quiet, most of the day's proceedings not yet begun. Amanda found herself staring at the closed door, imagining the conversation taking place on the other side. "She'll be fine," James said softly. "Charlotte is remarkably poised for her age." "Tyler was the same way," Amanda replied, her throat tight. "Wise beyond his years." "Mrs. Thompson." A voice from down the hall drew her attention. Patricia Simmons approached, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Daniel and Harper followed a few steps behind, both dressed in somber business attire that seemed at odds with their usual casual style. "We need to talk," Patricia said, her tone professional but urgent. "Privately." James straightened. "My client has nothing to discuss outside of court." Patricia's gaze flicked to James, then back to Amanda. "I believe she might, once she understands the situation fully." Something in the attorney's tone gave Amanda pause. "It's all right, James. I'll hear what they have to say." They moved to a nearby conference room, Amanda and James on one side of the polished table, Patricia, Daniel, and Harper on the other, the physical embodiment of the divide between them. "Let me be direct," Patricia began without preamble. "My clients have authorized me to offer a settlement. Mrs. Thompson retains permanent guardianship of Charlotte. In exchange, half of Tyler's trust fund is transferred to Daniel and Harper." "Half," Amanda repeated, incredulous. "After everything you've put us through, you still expect to profit from Tyler's death." "This isn't about profit," Harper interjected, her voice strained. "It's about survival." Patricia shot her client a warning glance, but Harper continued, words tumbling out like water through a broken dam. "We owe money to dangerous people. $200,000. They're threatening us, and not just with lawsuits or bad credit. Physical threats." Daniel placed a restraining hand on his wife's arm. "Harper, stop." "No." "Daniel, I'm done with the lies." Harper's carefully constructed facade crumbled, revealing the desperation beneath. "Mom, I have a gambling problem. It started after Charlotte was born postpartum depression that I never got treated properly. Gambling was my escape, my way of feeling something besides the emptiness." Amanda absorbed this confession, remembering what Evelyn had told her. "Your mother mentioned your gambling debts." Surprise flashed across Harper's face. "You've spoken to my mother. She called me last night. She's planning to testify for us. Not you." Harper paled visibly. Patricia Simmons's expression remained carefully neutral, but Amanda could see the calculations happening behind her eyes. Another witness lost. Another blow to their already weakening case. "The point remains," Patricia said, recovering smoothly. "My clients are offering a reasonable compromise. Guardianship of Charlotte in exchange for half the trust. Everyone gets something they want." "Except Tyler," Amanda replied quietly. "He gets nothing he wanted." "Tyler is gone," Daniel said bluntly. "Charlotte is here. This is about her future now." "Is it?" Amanda leveled her gaze at her son, Because from where I sit, this looks like it's about saving yourselves from the consequences of Harper's addiction and your enabling, using Tyler's death as an opportunity. That's not fair, Daniel protested, but the words lacked conviction. It's perfectly fair, Amanda countered. Let me tell you what Tyler wanted for his trust fund. He wrote it down in a letter to Charlotte before he died, a letter she's sharing with Judge Watkins as we speak. Daniel and Harper exchanged alarmed glances. He wanted the money to fund his college education, which now can't happen. He wanted to establish environmental scholarships. He wanted to protect the lakes and rivers he loved. And he wanted to make sure Charlotte was taken care of, including buying her the telescope he'd been saving for. Amanda's voice remained steady despite the emotion building in her chest. Nowhere in that letter did he mention bailing out his absent parents from gambling debts. Patricia leaned forward, her demeanor shifting slightly. Mrs. Thompson, while I respect your position, I must advise you that family courts strongly favor biological parents. Even with documentation of past negligence, judges are inclined to give parents another chance if they demonstrate willingness to change. Is that what this is? Amanda asked. A demonstration of willingness to change, using your child as a bargaining chip to get money. Before Patricia could respond, the conference room door opened. A court officer stood there. Judge Watkins requests everyone's presence in her chambers immediately. The unexpected summons sent a ripple of tension through the room. This deviation from normal procedure could mean anything. Amanda exchanged a glance with James, who gave a small nod of encouragement. Judge Watkins's chambers were larger than Amanda had expected, with bookshelves lining the walls and large windows overlooking the courthouse square. Charlotte sat in an armchair, looking small but composed. The judge herself stood behind her desk. Tyler's letter opened before her. Please, everyone, be seated, Judge Watkins said, indicating the chairs arranged in a semicircle before her desk. Once they were all settled, she continued, her voice measured. I've just had a very enlightening conversation with Charlotte, who shared with me this letter from her brother, written shortly before his death. She held up Tyler's letter. It's rare in family court to have such clear documentation of a minor's wishes regarding both their estate and the welfare of their sibling. The judge turned her attention to Daniel and Harper. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, this letter directly contradicts much of your testimony regarding your relationship with your children and Tyler's wishes for his trust fund. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Harper stared at the floor. Additionally, Judge Watkins continued, Charlotte has expressed in no uncertain terms her wish to remain with her grandmother. While I typically take a child's preferences as just one factor among many, the consistency between her statements, this letter, and the documented history of Mrs. Thompson's guardianship creates a compelling case. Patricia Simmons attempted to regain control of the situation. Your Honor, while we respect Tyler's letter, it was written by a minor without legal knowledge of trust administration. Furthermore, children often express loyalty to their primary caregiver out of familiarity rather than objective assessment of their best interests. A fair point, counsel, Judge Watkins acknowledged. However, I must also consider the timing and motivation behind your client's sudden desire for custody after 6 years of minimal involvement. She fixed Daniel and Harper with a penetrating gaze. Charlotte mentioned overhearing a conversation about gambling debts and dangerous people. Care to address that? The direct question caught them off guard. Harper's composure cracked completely, tears spilling down her cheeks. It's true, she admitted, ignoring Patricia's warning hand on her arm. I have a gambling problem. We're in debt. But that doesn't mean we don't love Charlotte. Love requires presence, Judge Watkins said quietly. It requires sacrifice and consistency. Based on the evidence before me, Mrs. Thompson has demonstrated these qualities consistently for 6 years. You have not. The judge looked at each person in the room before continuing. I've made my decision. Rather than prolonging this process with formal hearings that would only cause Charlotte additional stress, I'm prepared to rule now if all parties are amenable. James spoke first. My client is prepared to accept Your Honor's ruling. Patricia hesitated, conferring briefly with Daniel and Harper before responding. We would prefer to proceed with the full hearing as scheduled. Your Honor. Judge Watkins nodded. That is your right. However, given what I've learned today, I feel compelled to issue an immediate temporary order pending the final hearing. She picked up a document from her desk. Effective immediately, Amanda Thompson is granted continued guardianship of Charlotte Wilson, with Daniel and Harper Wilson permitted supervised visitation to be arranged through family services. She turned to Amanda. Regarding Tyler's trust fund, I'm issuing a temporary freeze on any distributions until after the full hearing. However, based on this letter and Charlotte's testimony, I am disinclined to override the explicit language of the trust giving Mrs. Thompson discretionary authority. Patricia Simmons began to object, but Judge Watkins raised a hand to silence her. Additionally, given the serious nature of the gambling addiction and debt issues raised today, I am ordering a full financial investigation before the next hearing. If there is evidence that the minors' funds would be at risk of misappropriation for gambling debts, that will weigh heavily in my final decision. The pronouncement fell like a gavel in the quiet room. Daniel's face had gone ashen. Harper was openly crying now, whether from relief or despair. Amanda couldn't tell. I believe that concludes our business for today, Judge Watkins said. The full hearing remains scheduled for next week, unless the parties reach a settlement beforehand. Outside the judge's chambers, Charlotte immediately ran to Amanda, who enveloped her in a tight hug. You did wonderfully, sweetheart, she whispered into her granddaughter's hair. I just told the truth, Charlotte said simply. Like Tyler would want. James touched Amanda's shoulder gently. The judge's temporary ruling is essentially a preview of her likely final decision. Patricia knows it. I suspect she'll be advising her clients to settle. Across the hallway, Daniel, Harper, and Patricia were engaged in an intense whispered conversation. Patricia's expression was grim, Daniel's angry, and Harper's defeated. Let's go home, Amanda said to Charlotte. I think we've all had enough for one day. As they turned to leave, Daniel broke away from his huddle and approached them. Mom, wait. Amanda paused, positioning herself slightly in front of Charlotte. What is it? Daniel? His face was a complex mixture of emotions, anger, shame, desperation. You've won. Is that what you wanted to hear? You've turned the judge against us, turned Charlotte against us, even turned Harper's mother against us. No one was turned against you, Daniel, Amanda replied steadily. People simply saw the truth of your choices. We made mistakes, he admitted, his voice lowering. But they weren't all our fault. After Charlotte was born, Harper got really sick, postpartum depression, but worse. The doctors wanted to hospitalize her. We couldn't afford it. My business was failing. No insurance. Amanda felt a pang of sympathy despite herself. Why didn't you come to us? Your father and I would have helped. Dad had just chosen Michael over me for the construction business expansion. My pride couldn't take another hit. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like Gerald's it made Amanda's heart ache. Then when things got really bad, leaving the kids with you seemed like the only solution. We thought it would be temporary. But temporary became convenient, Amanda finished for him. Daniel didn't deny it. What happens now? That depends on you and Harper. Judge Watkins has made it clear Charlotte stays with me, and Tyler's trust fund will be used according to his wishes. The question is whether you want to be part of Charlotte's life moving forward, real part, not just occasional visitors. And the debts, Daniel asked, lowering his voice further. These people won't just go away. Mom. Amanda studied her son's face, seeing not just the manipulative adult he'd become, but glimpses of the troubled boy he'd once been. That's not Charlotte's problem to solve. It's not Tyler's problem to solve. It's yours and Harper's. Michael joined them, having observed the exchange from a distance. Daniel, there are gambling addiction programs, debt counseling, legal ways to handle loan sharks. None of them involve taking money from your dead son. Daniel flinched at the bluntness of Michael's words. Easy for you to say. Dad always favored you. Dad favored responsibility and integrity, Michael corrected. You could have had both if you'd chosen differently. Charlotte, who had been silent during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. Dad, Tyler always said people can change if they really want to. He said everybody deserves a second chance. But they have to earn it. Daniel looked down at his daughter, really seeing her perhaps for the first time not as a possession to be claimed or leverage to be used, but as a person with wisdom and feelings of her own. Something shifted in his expression. "I have to go," he said abruptly. "Harper's waiting." As they watched him rejoin his wife, Amanda felt a curious mixture of sadness and resolve. The battle wasn't entirely over, but the most important victory had been secured. Charlotte would stay where she belonged, and Tyler's legacy would be honored. "Did I say the wrong thing?" Charlotte asked uncertainly as they walked toward the courthouse exit. Amanda hugged her close. "No, sweetheart. You said exactly the right thing. Sometimes the truth is hard to hear, but it's what people need most." Outside, the September sunshine felt like a benediction after the tension of the courthouse. Charlotte skipped down the steps beside Amanda, already showing signs of the resilience that would help her navigate life without her beloved brother. "What happens now, Grandma?" she asked as they reached the car. "Now," Amanda said, helping her with her seatbelt, "we start building the future Tyler would want for us." That future was still taking shape in Amanda's mind, a foundation in Tyler's name. Scholarships for environmental studies, a program teaching water safety to prevent other families from experiencing their loss. Most importantly, a stable, loving home where Charlotte could grow up carrying her brother's memory and values with her. As they drove away from the courthouse, Amanda glanced in the rearview mirror at Charlotte, who was gazing out the window at the blue September sky for the first time since Tyler's death. Amanda felt something beyond grief. A quiet, determined hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, honoring the legacy of the boy who had saved others until his final moment.